Susan stood at the edge of the crystalline balcony, staring into the vast violet skies of Astra 9, the alien world humanity once called its proud frontier. Her reflection wavered on the glassy surface beneath her boots, tired, resolute, and far older in spirit than her 29 years. Humanity had been exiled from this world, banished, expelled like pests from a garden that they had nurtured, bled for, and defended alongside its native inhabitants for decades. A soft hum echoed behind her as Evan, chief tactician of the Terran Exodus fleet, stepped onto the balcony. "Command is ready," he said quietly. "Whenever you give the word." Susan exhaled slowly. "I gave them every chance, Evan. Every single one." He nodded. "And they ignored every warning." The Aurelian Council, the ruling species of Astra 9, had once welcomed humanity with cautious optimism. They had needed human innovation, engineering, medicine, star navigation, and for a time, the alliance had flourished. But power shifts like sand in a cosmic storm, and when the Aurelians no longer required human expertise, their tone had changed. Humanity was labeled disruptive, then dangerous, and finally, unfit to remain. Forced relocation, forced abandonment of their cities, their research, their children's future. The last Terran ship had left Astra 9 in a quiet flight of shame, but the galaxy never tolerated a power vacuum, and humanity never forgot. As the wind rippled through the shimmering energy fields of the alien capital, Susan projected the live feed. The scene came to life in front of them, a massive holographic display showing the Aurelian Prime Chamber, where the counselors gathered in panic. One counselor rose, trembling. "General Susan Carter, you return here in violation." "I return," Susan interrupted coldly, "because the Drathian swarm is 8 hours from your atmosphere." The chamber erupted. Fear, shouting, denial. Evan smirked. "They still think talking loudly solves things." The Aurelians had mocked humanity's constant warnings about the swarm, an apex predatory species that consumed worlds like a wildfire. Susan had begged the Council years ago to coordinate defenses, to build orbital shields, to prepare evacuation tunnels. But the Aurelians, proud and arrogant, had insisted they were untouchable. "Your threats do not intimidate us," hissed Counselor Kethra. "You expect us to believe the swarm has come here? To our world?" Susan tapped a button. The sky above Astra 9 lit up with streaks, thousands of red blips descending through the upper atmosphere. A cold silence fell across the chamber. Evan folded his arms. "First wave of biopods. If you're lucky, it's only scouts." "No," Counselor Kethra whispered. "Yes," Susan said softly. "We warned you." Susan turned away from the balcony and headed back inside their temporary command station, an evacuated Aurelian observation spire that her team had quietly reclaimed only hours earlier. Evan followed, his boots echoing across the smooth metallic floor. "Fleet status?" Susan asked. "All Terran vessels are in formation, defense grid ready, shields calibrated, and the Magnus array," Evan paused, raising a brow, "is at full charge." Susan closed her eyes briefly. The Magnus array was humanity's last resort weapon. A gravitational distortion cannon capable of tearing a hole through space itself, powerful, terrifying, and strictly forbidden within Aurelian space. Funny how the rules changed when the enemy wasn't human. "Good," she said. "Hold until I signal." "Of course." Nearby, engineers and officers moved briskly, monitoring feeds from every continent. The swarm was spreading fast, winged, jet-black bio-creatures with razor spines and adaptive carapaces. They fell like meteors and rose like nightmares. The Aurelians had never faced an enemy that evolved mid-battle, but humanity had, and humanity had learned. Susan opened the comm line again. "Counselors, you have two options. 1, Authorize joint control of Astra 9's defense systems. 2. Refuse, and your world ends tonight. You would dare force us? Another counselor spat. Evan leaned closer to the console, voice dripping with amusement. You forced us to leave our homes. And we left peacefully, Susan said. Remember that. We didn't raise a weapon against you, even under threat, even under exile. The chamber fell silent again. Because the truth was something the Aurelians hated acknowledging. Humanity had always been merciful. Humanity had always shown restraint. Humanity had always offered help, until pushed too far. The feed flickered as a violent tremor shook Astra 9. Explosions rippled across one of the major cities as the swarm began tearing through its crystal towers. Screams echoed through the comm channel. The counselors flinched. Susan's voice turned cold steel. Those are your people, your cities. We tried to spare you this. Evan glanced at her, reading the weight in her eyes. Susan, they're about to break. Good. Susan needed them broken. A shattered pride was easier to negotiate with. Finally, Counselor Kethra spoke, this time quietly, defeated. What do you require of us? Susan didn't smile, not even a flicker of triumph. A partnership, she said. Not subjugation, not punishment. You will cede defensive command to Terran officers. You will allow human fleets on your soil. You will treat our people as equals. And when this war ends, we rebuild Astra 9 together. A long pause. Then, we accept. Evan exhaled. And there it is. Susan nodded. Send in the first fleet. Deploy ground teams. Evan tapped his wristband. Terran Exodus Fleet. Engage. The skies of Astra 9 erupted with streaks of silver and blue as human warships descended through the clouds. Precision strikes tore through the swarm's landing pods. Shield carriers absorbed explosive impacts. Dropships deployed armored infantry who hit the ground running. Terran soldiers, once exiled, now returned as the world's only hope. Aliens on the ground looked up in shock as humans shielded them, evacuated them, fought tooth and bone for them. It was the HFY legacy written in real time, humanity rising, not to conquer, but to protect, to defy extinction in themselves and others. Evan watched the battle unfold on the holo projection. You think they'll ever understand what they did to us? They don't need to. Susan replied softly. They just need to survive long enough to learn why they should never underestimate humanity again. She stepped forward and issued the final command. Activate the Magnus Array! A thunderous hum rippled across the fleet as the weapon gathered gravitational force. Space twisted, folding inward. A massive vortex erupted behind the swarm's central hive cluster, pulling thousands of creatures into oblivion. The planet shook. The night lit up with brilliance, and the tide of battle turned. Hours later, as dawn rose over a scarred but living Astra 9, Susan stood among the crystalline ruins. Terran and Aurelian soldiers moved together through the wreckage, tending to the wounded, rebuilding emergency shields, gathering survivors. Evan approached, his uniform dirt-stained and scorched. Council wants to meet in person. Susan nodded. Let them wait a moment. She gazed across the horizon, where Terran ships hovered like silent guardians. They forced humanity to leave, she whispered. We warned them. They didn't listen. Evan smiled faintly. They'll listen now. Yes, she said, because today they faced the repercussions, and humanity saved them anyway. She turned, determination burning in her eyes. Let's build a future where they never forget this. And humanity, banished, underestimated, resilient, rose once more as the defenders of a world that had once cast them out.